What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode here on the ArchiTech Network podcast. Today, we're going to be jumping into the Metaverse, and we're going to be doing that with the one and only Mariana Cabugueira, who has transitioned from designing at Zaha to now designing in the Metaverse at Wilder, or Wilder World. If you haven't heard of Wilder before, it's essentially a Metaverse company that's building, in their words, an immersive 5D Metaverse that is built on the Ethereum blockchain, the Unreal Game Engine 5 and Zero. And it's a world being built by a whole host of different creatives, from architecture and urban planning, which I think Mariana is mostly involved with, to digital clothing, shoes, there's vehicles, there's pets, all these kinds of different things that we'll be able to play with when we come and inhabit the metaverse that is Wilder World. And so they're building this amazing metaverse right now, and we're going to be talking with Mariana about her transition from designing in the real world at Zaha to now designing in this virtual world and the metaverse at Wilder, and how this has affected her design process and the tools that she uses. We'll also be touching on the metaverse in general and Web3 and where are we now with the metaverse. Some people say that the metaverse is dead, but like myself, I believe it's going to be a big part of our future, and we're simply in the technology hype curve of the metaverse. We'll also be touching on her collaboration with PA Academy, where she's been teaching designing in Maya and then bringing it into Unreal, so you can then bring your projects into the metaverse. We'll also be touching on game engines, right? How are game engines affecting her design process and also us as architects? So we're going to be touching on all of these things with Mariana. As always, if you like this podcast, give us a like and give us a subscribe. Please share this with your colleagues and friends. That's the whole point of doing this, is to share knowledge around architecture and technology. As always, if you want to keep up to date with what's going on in ArchiTech Network, you can follow us on Instagram or LinkedIn, where we post upcoming podcasts, upcoming events, and courses that we'll be releasing. Without any further ado, let's jump into it and have a chat with Mariana. All right, that's it. We're live. Mariana, thank you so much for rejoining the podcast. This is the second time you've been on the ATN podcast. I think you're our first guest actually from the Clubhouse era to the virtual era, or the video era.
True. Hi, Ollie. Yeah, it feels pretty good to be jumping into a video chat now. Better than the Clubhouse. I don't even know what happened to the Clubhouse, actually.
That's what everyone says after I mentioned the Clubhouse thing. Yeah. I did go on it the other day and just like, is anyone still around there? But, you know, that was where we got started. In fact, you were also the first ever recorded podcasts. So,
wow.
Because it took us some time to work out how to record on Clubhouse. But so thank you for joining us today. I think it's going to be a really interesting time to have you on, because there's a lot going on in the world of the metaverse, in the public, but also behind the scenes. There's so many exciting things going on. So I thought it was a good time to get you on. All right. So, usually I do a little bit of an introduction for people, but I think for you, it's a bit more, I'm sure the ATN crowd will know you a little bit already. I think what's interesting is to talk about, pick up from where we last talked to you. So last time we spoke, you were working at Zaha, designing in the real world. You're a senior architect at Zaha. You're also teaching at various different platforms at that time around designing in Maya and that kind of thing. Fast forward to today, and you've been at Wilder for a year now, right? And you're a director of art at Wilder World, which is this incredible metaverse. We'll talk about in a little bit. You're also teaching with PA Academy with your MetaFluid Studio. So you're teaching you've extended what you've been teaching of designing in Maya, but also bringing it into the Unreal Game Engine and therefore into the wider metaverse. I think you've kind of made this really interesting transition into the metaverse. So I thought maybe to kick off, why don't you talk us through a little bit of an elevator pitch of what is Wilder World and your role within Wilder.
Okay, so Wilder World is a Web3 company, which means that, it's usually hard to explain what it is, the difference between Web3 and Web2. But right now we are living the Web2. Our WWW World Wide Web is 2. our www one was Yahoo, and I think you've seen it. I also saw it. And the Web 2 right now is all of these platforms, like from Twitter to Instagram to not just social media, but the way we surf the internet right now is Web 2. And there are Web 3 companies being built right now at the same time that Web 3 is being built. And Wild World is a Web 3 company. So it's not just responsible for building a kind of metaverse, or, I mean, let's also keep it as a rule for this podcast that the name Metaverse will hopefully change. But we can call it Web3 immersive spaces. So they are building their own immersive space platform or city, and they're also developing NFTs. They develop their own token, which means their own currency. So it is a full-on Web3 company. And part of it, there's Metaverse. There's a team that does Metaverse, and I'm the part of the team that does the Metaverse.
Right, and it's like, so this kind of immersive world is being built by different creatives around the world, right? And so you're obviously focusing on like the architecture and master planning side and things like that. But there's also people, right, building cars and shoes and all this kind of stuff, right? These different assets.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing. And so I was reading that there's a universe, which from it is called Z Space, is this universal space for Wilder World. Wilder World is a world inside it. But then right now you're designing Wyami, which is a mirror of Miami, right?
You are very well informed, Oli.
I need to do my homework, you know.
Well done. It's not a mirror. A mirror on Web3 would be called a twin sister, and it's not a twin city. So it's actually a reinterpretation, redesign, a completely new retake on urban planning of Miami to something that's called Wyami. Which is already pretty disruptive, the urban plan, and even the terrain scenario is very different. But it's very fun for an architect to be picking up from OSM data, which is the data from real life, from physical world, to digital data. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, we are building a city that is the size of Miami, and we call it Wyami.
Yeah. Is there any, maybe we'll come back to this, but is there any certain points between the real Miami and Wyami that are the same?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I was thinking.
The most important thing that I consider to be the most important thing for an architect about cities, and this was personal, and it was asked to me, like, what should we keep? And it was right in the beginning, what should we keep? For me, the most important feature is the culture. And Miami has a very thick and very iconic culture. So definitely, if there was something, a data that should be kept beside physical data, what really is important about Miami that should be taken to a digital Wyami is the soul of Miami. The practice of space is important to me, and Miami is split and divided in different neighborhoods, and each neighborhood has a specific practice and an identity. For example, you have the art neighborhood, you have the nightclub scene, and this is very interesting to be taken to Metaverse and to digital environments. So we are definitely keeping this.
Okay, that's super cool. So, I mean, when you're leaving Zaha, I know you've talked a little bit about why you transitioned, but what was it that really tempted you over to designing immersive Web3 experiences and, you know, leaving Zaha and moving to Wilder?
When I left Zaha, in February, I joined in June 2021, and you can tell that is a very big gap because it was a very big risk, and because I respect the people I was working with so much, and we were finishing a very big project together, that I had to actually tell Wilder Worlds I need some time to finish what I'm doing here, and actually also to think, like, do I want to move from an environment where I'm designing for a physical world, or do I want to move to an environment that will never pass from the digital world? Because to be honest, I don't know how much you do, like, you follow a construction on site, or how much you actually do physical work. I've never done at Zaha. I was always doing digital work, so it was not a different workflow. It was the same workflow. but it would come with different rewards. In the end, around November, before February, I actually felt like my journey was probably finishing. I was not so happy. I was not in a happy place. I was doing very well outside of Zaha on all the projects I was doing outside. And I feel that you, as an employee, you have this responsibility of letting your director know that your boat is sinking. Or as I told my director, I'm starting to look sideways.
Yeah.
I'm looking at other people.
Yeah.
And this is very dangerous. Like, I'm very unhappy about this and that. I don't know what the solution is. I mean, of course, you know what the solution is. But the reality is, this is my status quo. Things are not going okay.
Yeah.
And this is what every employee needs to do. It's your responsibility. So I did it around November, and then, funny enough, about February, nothing changed, and I was reached by Wilder. And they were offering some of the things that I was asking for a very long time, which was a leading position, which was something that I always felt like I would be good at. And it's important. It's interesting that when you say that you're good at being a lead, or when you actually, you know that you have a lot more capacities that people are not taking advantage, or you're showing that you are ambitious, especially when you're a woman, it does not land very well. It does seem like you're greedy. But imagine that you see someone performing a role and you know that you can do better. You just know. And it could be whatever role, a task. Someone is cooking rice and you cook way better than that, and you're just watching. You're like, I wonder when can I start cook rice? Like, I know I'm good at it. And it was years at Zaha with this, years with me saying, listen, I know I can lead. I'm calm, I'm serene, I'm objective. I have tunnel vision on when I think that things should go this way or that way. And it was never even close. I was never even close to get the role. So then when Wilder World approached me, it was literally that. You'll be the lead of a department. And I was like, you know what? You're not just a lead and then you start leading. You need to learn how to be. But I'm not going to learn in this stable water that I am right now. So I went to Wilder and now I'm learning.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of the biggest point of joining. And then the second point of joining is definitely the salary.
Yeah. I mean, and the 2 points that, architecture practices need to evolve in some way. I think I was talking with some other people that work in different firms that, a bit like yourself are teaching outside of the office and doing these other things. And I think we're only going to see more of that. We're already seeing young architects, YouTubers or doing these other things.
Exactly. We are seeing more and more of this.
Yeah. It almost seems like there needs to be like an incubator of an architecture firm that has all these people working together, but they also have their own thing. So I think that's super interesting.
I feel like we were in a way like almost pioneers on this idea of being creators that are not just designing in an office. So you have the ATN. I started creating outside, and after this, I think it will just become exponential. It will just explode. Like the amount of people who are doing at Zaha, who are doing what I was doing right now, it's
actually, we just for years we've been we had Tim Fu on the podcast, which is obviously going through this AI explosion of teaching and doing things. So I think that's a really, really kind of interesting point. Like architecture practices need to evolve a little bit. I know, like for example, at Big, they're a little bit more open to that kind of thing, but a lot of not so many firms are, and it's going to be a big part of the future.
Yeah,
I think the other thing that was a really interesting point that you just brought up was like you were always designing for a digital world, right? Not many of the products like went into the construction stages and things like that. But you are working in this virtual world now, and I know there's one tool that's been added to your design process, which is Unreal. Has your design process changed much, like designing for the metaverse? What do we call it? An immersive environment for a physical environment? Like, how has your design process changed in the tools you use?
It's a great question with a very simple answer. It has not. I kept the same, but also because my design tools and my design philosophy comes from a very big and important place called Zaha, the architects. If I was from another office, most likely my design tools would have to change or my design workflow would have to change. But the realities, and you can say whatever you want about your corporate old job and or Zaha did. The reality is I was in a place where almost regardless of the influx of money that would come to the house, to Zaha, the core part of the office, of the practice is invest in the future, invest on what's next. And that comes with big risks. And I'm pretty sure they did a lot of projects that have almost nothing for them, but they always had in mind what's next. What's the next for the practice of the architect? For example, I went to this very big conference in Mumbai. We were like 7 important speakers that represent a different field in architecture, future of architecture. And you had someone representing 3D printing, someone representing AI, someone representing Metaverse, which is me, someone representing robotic fabrication. And we were from very big, different countries and from very different backgrounds. And we spent these 2 days together and we were like talking, and it was like we got very close, really good speakers, really good architects. And then I realized that in every presentation, Zaha was mentioned. And that's insane. And that says a lot. And it's not because they are like bragging about it or they're not selling the office, but you'd see 3D printing, the future of 3D printing, showing like 10 projects, and then it comes to one, and this was a collaboration with Zaha. And then you see the future of robotic fabrication, and this was a collaboration with Zaha. And then you see the AI, and then you see Refik Anadol, and this was a collaboration with Zaha. Me, I came from Zaha. Melike, I came from Zaha. And the reality is, that's exactly what the office is. Like from Patrick to the employees that work there, the mindset is, what's next? What's next? No, we need to outdo ourselves. More than any office that I know, like from Big, from MED, from UN Studio, they will make big risks just for the sake of being fresh, of renovating, of like what Sajid does.
Yeah.
Of reinventing. And that's exactly what I take when I'm doing Metaverse, when I'm doing Web3 design. My mindset is, what's next? Same thing they would ask me when I was designing for them. That's not fresh enough. That's not futuristic enough. That's old. We've seen that. Like that was what I was getting at Zaha. Right now, as the lead of my department, the question is always, what is next for form? What is next for the practice of space? What is the digital practice of space? So it's a very linear progression from Zaha to this job that I have. It's same mindset, same design tools, which is staying in the future.
Yeah. No, it seems like it was from observing it seemed like it was a great transition for you, right? From the philosophy of Zaha and the things that you were designing there to this this virtual world. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you say that like the tools that you use, you're specifically talking about Maya, right? Which is kind of designed for, VFX animation, and it's like very compatible with, things that they use to build metaverses like Unreal. I saw like there was like this evolution of you using Unreal on your stories and things like that over time. Of you were kind of like seemed like you were just learning it and picking up. How does that play a role now? Like you design in Maya and then you bring it into Unreal, and how much do you work in Unreal before you hand it over to, I assume, like game developers that tweak it and all that kind of stuff? Well,
the reality is it's almost the same as asking like how much of engineering work an architect does. Like you don't do much, but you have like a common sense about engineering. It's the same as having a common sense about gamified platforms like Unreal. So does it help to, from time to time, take it to Unreal and understand how is it going to be featured and how do you explore the space from the perspective of your VR set? Yes, it does help. Are you the best one to do it? No, you're not. You're not specialized. So I would always take it to Unreal, and that was the reason why I decided to learn Unreal, was to inform my designs better on what's the ultimate platform where this is going to be featured, right? The same thing we do as architects for IRL. But knowing as well that I was not coming as the expert, it would just inform my design. It would make it easier for me to design and also like be aware about certain details. But you should be working with an expert who does Unreal.
Yeah.
You're not the expert.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely super excited about Unreal. I've been learning it myself on the side.
You are. Do you like it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally in the baby phases, but like, I'm like very on the Unreal train of it affecting our industry, and I think it's going to be we'll spend a lot of time in Unreal, whether it's directly in there or like a software that's using it. I think it's going to be a big part of the future.
Yeah.
Having spent some time like working in like the metaverse and designing for immersive experiences and things like that, are architect, like I think you're quite a unique case from coming from like a firm like Zaha to what you're doing now. But do you think architects are good to design the metaverse? Because on some ways, I think you'll see architects like find it hard to disconnect from the realities of like gravity and things like that.
At the same time, it's very funny you're saying this because it's actually they are not real enough. That's the issue. But yeah, I'll go back to...
Yeah, and that was actually the point I was going to make is like, on the other hand, you then get other people designing, metaverse things, and they're sometimes like bonkers crazy, and they're almost too alien to like interact with. And the ones that seem the most interesting, I think what you're doing is super interesting. It's like, it doesn't look alien to me. There's buildings and roads, but it's like you play with gravity. For example, a tower like has a twist in it that is completely possible in the real world, but in the metaverse, it's totally possible.
Good comment. There are two things to talk about this: how fit are architects to the job.
Yeah.
On one side, I think, imagine you're not working for a company, okay? You're opening your own metaverse. You're going to have your statement as an architect about how grounded are my designs going to be. And I'm saying it's a statement because it will define the type of design that you want your company to offer. So if you want to be not grounded at all, you'd be creating the fantasy land. Which is debatable because I still think that as much as architects want to go for fantasy, we're still building for conventional people. Let's remember that. And conventional spaces do not fit conventional people. That's the first thing. It is important and interesting to be doing fantasy land, though, so I don't discard it completely. Would I like to spend a day there? Not really, probably. But I can understand where it's the upside. And then you can either go for the fantasy land or be smart, and this is how I take it as an architect, and design a project that can be hybridized to a physical environment if it's needed to, without making too much compromises on the design for that to happen. So if you launch a project, and this happens very often with clients, a digital project for your digital land, and they really love it, and they're so excited. Oh, you know what? Can we actually build it? Yeah. And then you're like, I'm not sure if I can provide toilets or like vertical points with, so be smart about it. And that's my statement as an architect for digital spaces, and make projects that do not need big compromises to be buildable. So you actually profit from both sides. They can be digital if the client wants to invest on it. It could be physical, or the other way around, right? You create the physical, and then it turns out the client says, you know what, I just bought land on Decentraland or Sandbox. Can I make this digital? It wouldn't make sense to put like a Revit model inside of Decentraland, right? So make sure it can also be like dumbed down almost to something more playful that makes more sense on Metaverse. So that's that side. And then there's the other side, which is architects we are really good until a point in IRL architecture, and then there's a point that we branch this out to specialties, right? So from electricity specialties to all the kind of from actually builders to panelization and stuff like that. Most of the metaverses, and especially Wilder, they go for hyper-realism. They want the wow effect, as in, I don't know if this is digital or physical, because it's so well detailed. And we are not great at that as architects. We stop somewhere there. And then there's someone else coming with like more details, like the details of the door frame, the details of like the window frame, the smaller window frame, the glue of the glass, all of this stuff. We don't know how to do this. So we are more or less in between. And the same way we are in between here in the physical environment. But yeah, I think this answered.
Yeah, I think the point of because most people at the moment are talking like you're designing a project in your office, and then you can also kind of throw it into the metaverse, so to speak. But I think the other way is somewhat more interesting as well. It's like people find you there, especially if you're like a young emerging architect, right? You can build in the metaverse for free essentially, and showcase your work, and then maybe that brings you into the real world, which I think is an interesting point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think so. We've been seeing you get into Unreal. You've been designing in the space. How do you feel like if we zoom out about the metaverse in general, where do you think we stand with the metaverse? Because right now, I mean, in the news right now, people are saying that the metaverse is dead and all this kind of stuff. And you and I know that's not true. But like, it's mostly to do with Meta and Zuckerberg pumping all this money into this blobby cartoon world. But there seems to be it's going through the technology hype curve, right? There was all this hype about it, and now it seems that we're in this era where people like yourself are building these experiences.
Exactly.
But I think who knows how long it will take till we're in them and experience them. So how do you feel like what's the era we're in right now for the metaverse?
I think for every technological era, there's a big hype in the beginning that gets good people who wants to be on the trenches playing the field. And that's when the hype comes down. People are still on the field, like they're trying to make it possible. And then you still have people on the sidelines. Like before Metaverse, I was on the sidelines as well. And then I got into the trenches. And this is where I'm at right now. And most of the people are on the sidelines. I actually just saw a documentary from Barack Obama, and I don't know if you saw it on Netflix. And they are interviewing the chairman of Tata from India, from Mumbai. And you see like one of their meetings with the chairman, and they asked him like, so how about Metaverse? What's our like point on, should we go in there? Should we invest? And he said, you know what, like he literally said, let's stay on the sidelines. This will progress. This will become something big. Let's not get involved because you lose money when you're involved, or you earn a lot. Let's stay on the sidelines and watch. And this is something that has been talked about very often about everything that is about Web3, from NFTs to Metaverse. Right. There are people on the trenches, there are people on the sidelines. Same with the AI. There are people on the trenches, there are people on the sidelines, just watching and taking their opinion. And both are very, very valid. I recommend people on the trenches sometimes to go to the sidelines, and people who are on the sidelines sometimes to go to the trenches, to get a more informed opinion. The whole thing about the metaverse is dead or not, it's bonkers. I think it's just media stunt that the whole Web3 has been living in this roller coaster of media, and media says whatever they want about Meta. Maybe what we know about what's happening in Meta is probably completely false in every way. It's just however the media wants to portray this. It's kind of hard to be so attached to whatever to Meta business models and to Meta success or failures. That's also good, and the problem is because they share the name. But at the same time, I think Meta was the biggest microfund for Metaverse or for Web3, which is I got involved because we started listening about this word because of Meta. So it's kind of a bittersweet relationship. It did good, it did bad. I think it is definitely something that is going to happen. It's the same as saying someone be fighting against like WhatsApp, or someone fighting against Twitter, or someone fighting against Instagram. No, it's never going to happen. Digital social media, we cannot do that. And then we have like, I don't know how many apps we have now of digital social environments.
I feel it's like the era of when eBay was just a website to sell Beanie Babies, and people are like, well, no one's buying Beanie Babies anymore.
How do you remember that?
Beanie Baby sales,
Exactly.
sales place. So,
Exactly. So in the same way that a company now has a website that is 2D, and it feels even a bit weird to still be like scrolling on a 2D screen and to interact with people in a 2D screen. That feels for me more weird than interacting with things in a 3D environment, digital or not. In the same way that a company has a website, a 2D platform, you will need the other one, the 3D platform, and it will make sense.
I think for me, the biggest question about like the adoption of the metaverse is the hardware and how you interact with it, right? And I think how do you guys interact with it? Like, are you envisioning in Wilder World that people are in this, like a classic VR headset and walking around? Is there, I always wonder with the metaverse, is there maybe a baby step before that where it's augmented reality? Like everyone has a phone now that you can go and look around and maybe see an overlay, for example, of Wyoming on Miami, right? And you have this like portal to look through, but not everyone right now has a headset and you need a fairly decent computer and blah, blah, blah.
It's a good question.
Yeah, how do you see this? Like, Shane, do you think, is the future going to be like I come home from work and boop, put on a headset and go into this other world that I live in? Kind of thing?
It's almost like, imagine when the first Macintosh was released and it was like this big fat baby. Imagine like someone doing a podcast back then saying like, is everyone going to have these fat babies and like words looking at them in the near...
Or like the brick phones.
Or like of those. Am I going to carry these bricks on my purse forever? And now your computer is like this slim, almost transparent thing on your... in your room, and it will be the same with headsets, right? Probably the phone is not the best metaphor. The metaphor is your sunglasses that you put on whenever you have too much sun, or if you don't see well, your regular glasses, just normal eyewear. You will be part of your eyewear, in the same way that this is part of, I don't know, our handwear or something. Glass will be eyewear. But it's interesting what you're saying, that fortunately or unfortunately, the evolution of technology is still tied. The big breakthroughs happen when hardware allows the breakthroughs in everything. And then there's a lot of breakthroughs of the software when the hardware allowed the first step. And then the software develops, goes until it reaches a point that is, we need a better hardware for this. And then we got the right hardware, revolutionizes, and then, okay, let's go. Software changes, everything evolves until you hit the next one. What's the hardware? So Metaverse is looking for the hardware because the software is here, it's developing, and Indivia is probably breaking through the most. They are responsible for this. Epic Games, they will be, I think, like really clearly, these guys are building it on the side. Epic Games will own it. Tencent is where most of the platforms are right now, almost like a Netflix, Tencent. So we just need the hardware to catch up. But it's the same with everything, even architecture. We needed construction to catch up. So it's the same.
Yeah. But I do think with AI, for example, we could see this exponential increase in software and hardware. And there are moments now, I like taking a picture of myself or friends with these headsets on, and I'm like, I know this is going to be a picture I'll show your kids in a few years.
That's what I think. Because they're so clumsy. They're so heavy. Like, that they will be like a relic in a couple of years.
Well, I feel like the big thing that people are waiting for is like the Apple glass. Apple have been talking about making glasses for ages, and there's always like that's coming out next year. I feel that would be a big inflection point in it. But you do see that it's like it's a world that you fully immerse in with whatever house like slimline the headset are. It's a world that we fully immerse in. Do you ever have those conversations of whether we're already in a simulation or metaverse in Wilder?
No,
Like that's it.
I've had that nightmare though, but never actually dreamt we were a simulation. Not good. It was an actual nightmare. Not amazing. But no, we don't talk about that. But yeah, I think we are all waiting for the hardware. But there's so much to do on the software anyway, and on the graphic cards that I think hardware will meet software very quickly.
Yeah, and I think like technology right now will just continue to grow exponentially.
Yeah.
Do you spend a lot of your day in VR whilst you're designing, for example, like to feel the space, or is it more of like is that how you review the products? Because I know you've obviously got a team of people. It's not just you designing, right? I know you had some people, some ex-Zaha people joined your team, and do you guys like meet in the metaverse, like in virtual reality, or not so much?
No. I actually like the way we have VR right now, and it's still not very user friendly. It still makes me extremely seasick. Like I would never spend more than 15 minutes there.
Yeah.
We are doing everything like we work remotely, fully remotely. We are not tied to a physical space, and the whole Wilder team. One of the most amazing things about the company is that because everyone is remote, you can just hire with people spread completely around the world. We have people in New Zealand. Most of the people are in USA. A lot of people in Canada. So you afford to hire the best from around the world without them having to move. So we work 24 hours remotely. Digitally together, never in an immersive space. It's just not there yet. Like there's no point. We are building it.
Yeah. How do you find working remotely completely? Because that's kind of like the dream. But I know that the reality, like for example, at Big, we've been full time for the last year and a half or something.
Completely full time.
Yeah. And like I feel like I liked it when I was kind of a hybrid, but I also like being back in the office. I do get the benefits of it.
Yeah.
But of course, there's moments where you're like, man, I'd love to be in the Alps just working and skiing, or in Portugal on the beach, you could just pop out for a surf or something.
I mean, yeah, but that never happened.
That's the thing. I tried it like a little bit when I was transitioning from New York to London, but I found it was like a mix. I could never I was like traveling and trying to work at the same time, which doesn't really mix. But are you enjoying the kind of fully work from home approach, or do you miss being in the office a little bit?
I think it's a super long topic, especially when it comes to the business model itself. Do I enjoy it? Yeah, I enjoy it, especially because I've had a long distance relationship for 7 years. And now it's the first time that I'm like, you know what? I can just live here in London, which is what I do. I live 50-50, so I still have my space, which I really appreciate, my loneliness in London, where my friends are. And then I come back to Lisbon from time to time just to be with my boyfriend, with my family. So I really appreciate that and that freedom. And it was the kind of freedom that I really needed at Zaha when I was there. But I cannot deny that the best times I had at Zaha were definitely when we were back to the office. When we were like the normal times, it was so cool. Like it was tough, it was intense, and our floor was called like the silence floor because everyone was like, you can feel the tension, but I really liked it because it was silent. And everyone was so stressed, like with their headphones, that you could it was peace and quiet, and I actually enjoyed it. I would never trade my remote work for that though. If I had a company, I don't think I would go for fully remote, because some people can do it and they have the discipline. Some people really cannot. They are unable to work remotely successfully. They just are enabled. Like they don't do it. They are not efficient. So if I had a company, I don't think I would do fully remote.
What about like meeting up in certain places? Like we're all in Lisbon for like a sprint on a project, and then you can go.
Exactly.
I feel like that's the sweet spot of the future.
Agree. Like the sprint of a project, you just hire like a warehouse with some good bedrooms, and they're like, now we live here.
Yeah, you can't leave.
You cannot leave. Here's your. You give them like a wristband.
Yeah. That's cool. So let's also touch on your teaching. So you've continued, we know each other because of online teaching from the Live Academy days. And obviously you went on to teach for Futurely, and now you're teaching at PA Academy.
Yeah.
Talk us through what is the MetaFluid Studio and what you teach and how it works like online.
Yeah. So I started the teaching journey like you did with tutorials. On softwares, and I was teaching a specific software that was Maya, and the reason why I was teaching it was because I knew it was an important software for specific offices like Zaha. So it was kind of like in a way to help the students to increase their chances of being hired, on like getting good skills, and also Zaha getting people with more and more skills at Zaha. Right now, I know it makes them angry, but most of them, of the people they hire, they have a project they did with me. So it's a win-win. The house wins, the students win. And that's when I started teaching Maya and DRL. And then I started teaching live, like you did. And I was still on the software like Maya. And then when I got the Metaverse proposal, no one was doing Unreal. I was literally the first person in architecture who said, you know what? Like, how about real-time rendering? Such as Unreal, like you had Enscape, but Unreal also allows multiplayer or uniplayer, allows a player, which is an avatar. So I got the proposal for Wilder. I asked, okay, what's the software? What's the gaming software? What's the platform where you allow the players to come in? And you have Unity, you have Unreal. And they said, Unreal, we are doing Unreal. Then I learned about it. I learned about GTA. I saw Epic Games, and they are a monster. They are amazing. Like Epic Games, they are absolutely blew my mind. And Unreal is for free even. And they were saying, they were the only ones saying Metaverse should be free, and then they were having a problem with Meta. They're having a problem with every software that wants to launch a Metaverse, and then Unreal Epic Games said, no, we will be free. We don't care. We are not charging for Metaverse. And then I was like, this is the good guys, and they have quality. They have good intentions. Let's go. And that's when I understood that Unreal will be important for designers. And then I thought, okay, before I join Wilder, I might as well start Unreal. And since I have a lot of students now, I might actually start a studio to teach architects how to do both. So Maya, modeling, and Unreal. So they kind of understand what Metaverse really is. And then I started like learning Unreal and teaching it, which was kind of crazy. Even the level I'm doing now is completely different of...
That's it's to start to teach it, because you're like, I need to work out what this button does. I've never used it.
Exactly. How do you navigate? How do you rotate? That kind of bullshit. So,
and actually, going to Unreal, I feel was a bit like going back to rendering in 3ds Max and V-Ray. Like, there's a gazillion buttons.
Exactly.
Like, if you just want a sun, it's not super obvious. It's like you gotta tick a couple things. Do you remember back in like the V-Ray 3ds Max days, you were like a genius if you could just make a sunny day?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same. So with this one, you actually have YouTube tutorials, but it's like 2 minutes for the perfect sun. No, for the perfect environment, I've had like an hour once on YouTube. The perfect environment, and you control everything. You control like the air particle if you want to, So it was like a big time of YouTube and tutorials, and then teaching, and then learning, and then teaching, and then learning. I was literally passing the knowledge I was getting like live. I learned today, let me teach you how to do it. And then I started a studio, and it was not anymore like just teaching a software. It actually became like a studio with projects, and then with teams. And then it kind of exploded, the studio, because the students were actually being hired for the skills they were getting from the MetaFluid studio in other offices. And they would come to me and they would say like, they just hired me because they saw your posts and they saw that I do Unreal. So I just got a job offer. And I kept getting these people, like especially in Egypt, a lot of people from an office called Badi Architects. They were getting hired massively because they had Unreal and Maya from the MetaFluid studio. And I was like, like, okay, let's keep going. This is giving them something, giving the architects an edge, which is the only thing that I'm concerned about. Our profession is let's stay up, like on the top of the wave. So I kept going, and now I'm on the third studio, and Unreal now is being taught by a professional.
Yeah, I saw you got
you
got like an Unreal person now.
Yeah,
and so it's something like a 6 to 8 week course or something, and
it's 6 courses.
They go through it, and then at the end, do they put it into anything, like any kind of metaverse, or they just have the product in Unreal, basically?
They have the product in Unreal, and then we put it in a single collective Unreal.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah, no, I'm also teaching at IAC this last year. We didn't get there in this one, but we've been designing a colony on Mars, and our ambition was to bring it all for next year. We'll bring it all into
Unreal. Nice.
So, I'm going to using space architecture with Unreal to experiment. So
nice. That's really cool. It makes a lot of sense because you can actually give like the space environment in Unreal. They have like really good features for environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can change the gravity values. Nice. That makes sense.
Yeah. So that's what I'm super interested in. But that's cool. So do you have other ones coming up? If people listening, if they want to join in, you will be doing future ones?
I think so. I did the third, and you know that every time you do the third of something, you need to reinvent yourself. So after the third one, I need to spend some time. I don't want to be doing the fourth of the same thing. So I want to sit down and then rethink on how do I see this metaverse going, and how can my students profit from my point of view. So I think there will be some things changing. Yeah, but definitely the study will come back.
We'll stay tuned. And our final question, which I've been asking a few people, and it's usually like might be like a little side quest, but what are you excited about now, like outside of the metaverse, like any kind of architecture technology thing that's exciting you? Of course, everyone would touch on like AI, but is there something that excites you outside of the metaverse that's going on right now?
I think from the AI point of view, maybe we can pick up on it later, but you would have, if you're smart, you are as excited as concerned with AI.
Yeah.
If you're selling, you are not concerned. You're just excited. And that's you selling. If you are concerned and you're smart, you probably are on a better perspective of AI, which is kind of where I'm at right now. But what am I excited about? To be honest, like I wanted to be an architect when I was really young. I was 6 or 7. And I went through like a couple of heartbreaks with the profession. So when I was 18 or 17, my heartbreak was when I saw that architecture was digital and it was not like done by hand. And I thought architecture was like these drawings that I love to make. And that I was grieving. I was like, I'll be an architect and I'll still do it by hand. I told my parents like for years, I was like, I'll be the architect doing stuff by hand. And 10 years later, I was at the DRL like and moved countries because my country was not digital enough. But then the other heartbreak was I realized that during university I went through this phase that I thought as an architect nothing will be invented. We will never leave a breakthrough in architecture. We are just going to do more of the same. I did not see like a revolution on the profession. I thought the revolution passed. That was the university fault, to be honest. But I had like the tunnel vision of there's nothing new. There's no new form. There's no new anything. And I was very sad about that. And then suddenly, like, look at this. It exploded. It exploded. You could be anything as an architect. You could be architectural designer. You could be doing Grasshopper, just Grasshopper. You can do the drawings, only construction drawings, if you really like it. You could be involving robotic fabrication. Like, you could be doing AI. You could be like, now as an architect, what happened to our field? It just exploded everywhere. Some people see it as a catastrophe, like, oh, we are going to end, and this is how we end. No, this is how we expand. Like, and as an architect right now, it's so exciting. Is honestly so exciting. I never thought I would live a breakthrough in the profession. I really was really concerned. I really thought it was going to be a stable profession of nothing new and nothing to add to the future. Like, they would never look back at us and say, oh, they invented this. I thought we were just going to stay. And then apparently not really. Apparently not. It's just exploding. And you just decide where you want to be, what you want to be doing in the profession.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, it's an exciting time. It's exciting and scary, specifically for the AI stuff. I'm like super excited, but super scared at the same time. But I think you're right. You're just like, there's so many things to follow, especially like as a, as digital architects. Like there's so many roads and trails that you want to pursue, and you're like, fuck, I don't have enough time to go down all of these things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could be either overwhelmed or you just go for the one that you really see yourself doing, the one that really represents you, or the one that you really believe in. Just stick to that one, and you'll get the success you want from that little tiny point of what architecture can be today. So about the AI stuff, I think it's more than just architecture. I think now it's funny how we are overwhelmed because we are doing JPEGs and we are seeing so many images come out of it. And I see it as a Pinterest. I mean, it's a good Pinterest. There's shitloads of work to be done after the Pinterest and after your mood board. So even my students, I always encourage them, get your inspiration wherever you want. Most of them do Midjourney. The second week, I send them a message saying, no more Midjourney stuff. From this point on, you guys are going to take it like the bull from the horns, and you're going to model every space, every tiny space with intention, with meaning, with ergonomics, with everything that architects actually do. So we are just overwhelmed with this billion of images that are coming out, and this conversation that we had once, remember that an algorithm is the best friend of the other algorithm. And AI has a super good algorithm on creating a billion of images just by you pressing your button or doing a little prompting. And Instagram lives on this, eats on this. So if you have a billion of content, your Instagram will grow exponentially, and then you get stuck on this like sugar rush of algorithm feeding another algorithm. So, and that's why we get like, so, whoa, this is huge, this is major, and some people are really stuck on the social media thing and on the followers and on the likes, and they get like, oh, this is the way because look at how many followers I got, and this has to be the way. But the reality is, what really concerns me about AI is, are these people really thinking when it comes to warfare, when it comes to country power, when it comes to inequality? Are they really seeing this? There's a super important, interesting podcast from the Diary of the CEO. I don't know if you know it, with Stephen Bartlett. He did a very good one now with a sex therapist. She's amazing, and the talk was amazing. And she grabbed on the AI and the studies she showed about what's happening with our intimacy with AI and what will happen with our intimacy with AI. It's like, listen, we need to think. Like, we need to not just to be on our sugar rush of popularity and to think. Because one thing is producing cool images. This is so much fun. Another thing is actually filling the gap of loneliness with artificial intelligence that is, it's done to cater you. And this, like, if we start getting a bigger distance between humans, I think that's when we stop. Like, that's when we have the responsibility of thinking.
Yeah. There's also there's another podcast that was going around talking, I think, touching on the same thing. I have seen that podcast, but I've not watched it yet. But this one was kind of touching on that social media has kind of slightly torn, like, the fabric of society in like disinformation and all this kind of stuff. And that's like AI is like that on steroids. And we haven't even fixed like the social media problem. And now AI is coming.
Exactly.
It is interesting, your point on like, it's very linked to social media. You can now just bosh out images like nothing and post them on Instagram, and it's like you're feeding this beast. But yeah, I do think it's going to be, I think that the image creation thing for architects is just the tip of the iceberg. Like we will see like AI being able to design 3D models, maybe even BIM models when they start to, train AI to specifically be an architect.
I hope the BIM models for sure. I hate BIM. But again, this is, oh my God, no. Yeah, exactly. No, please get an AI for BIM, please. But that's the thing. It's like if we have the freedom of selecting what do we want which gap do we want to fill with AI, then do it. Personally, would I like to fill the gap of creativity with AI? Not really. This is where I get my pleasure from. It's from creating. This is what I love to do. I love spending a day taking a model from my head and battling against my own skills. That's the struggle I like. Creating spaces. Would I like to replace it with a Midjourney machine? And when I'm typing and grabbing and stealing a bit from every successful project? Not really. Would I want it to be creating my own BIM model? Yeah, please. Where is it?
No,
Send me one.
That's a great point. Like, a lot of it could be just automating the stuff that we don't want to do, so we can spend more time designing. I think it's less about handing over the design to an AI and more like co-creating or co-designing. I think that to me gets a bit more interesting.
Yeah, hybrid models.
You sort of do it with Midjourney, right? You're kind of like pushing it in a direction, and it inspires you, and then you go in a different direction. But yeah,
not so successfully though. And this whole idea that I hand sketch something that Midjourney then took, it's the biggest scam in the world. It's not doing that yet. It will be doing that, not now. But do I think that co-creation is cool? Yeah, of course it's cool. Do I think that this is the recipe for success? Maybe not. Like, look at what happened every time we had to automate something. Like Industrial Revolution, it was 100 years ago. So we are starting a new cycle, and it's exactly the same thing. We need automation. Why do we need automations? Because we are a lot more in the surface of Earth. We need to start automating stuff to feed everyone, and that's when you start getting all of these companies, all of these warehouses, and you have fast fashion, fast food, fast everything. Company owners are the happiest ones because you don't need a lot of people with good skills. You just hire the person running the AI or running the machine that is already coded to be successful and to have a model. Same with AI. Industrial Revolution, automation. You still have high-end fashion. You still have gourmet restaurants. They still take longer process. They are still more expensive, a lot more expensive than the automated. Would I see a fast architecture? Yeah, for sure. We will see a prefab fast architecture from AI. Would we still see the curated architecture, the high-end? Yeah, we will. Will it be more expensive? Yes. Will probably not even touch a warehouse or an AI? Probably. So it's the same thing. It's just another cycle.
Yeah. An interesting time we're in, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I think
we'll
wrap it up there, and we'll put a pin in it before we go down the AI road too far.
Yeah, or the metaverse.
Yeah. I think it will be an interesting mix, AI with
when they cross, metaverse. For sure.
Yeah, when they cross, that would be a crazy period.
For sure.
But no, super exciting. As always, if people want to find you, they can best to reach out on your Instagram, right? Or is there anywhere else people can follow you for upcoming courses and things like that? I can put your Instagram in the link below the video.
Instagram, definitely my platform right now.
Yeah, and go and join one of Mariana's courses, and you can learn about Maya and the Metaverse, which I think will be exciting. I might join one day.
Yes, especially with Unreal. I mean, if you're teaching Unreal, there's no point. But yeah.
Look, I'm learning Unreal. I'm going to teach in Next Studio next year, I think maybe. But so yeah, I'm in the phase of getting up to speed. But yeah,
YouTube
thank you.
tutorials.
Thank you so much for joining. I think at the time that we're publishing this, we should be having Pechakucha in the Pub episode 2 coming up, which will be on AI architecture. So stay tuned for that. But Mariana, thank you again so much for coming on the podcast for the second time, and hopefully we'll have you in the future. Who knows where we'll be in a couple of years and have another conversation.
For sure. You too. Thank you, Ollie. Really, always exciting to be here, especially whenever there's a new phase to be talking about, which is great. Exactly where I'm at.
Okay, great. Well, thanks a lot, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.